goods continues, with sugar being the single product that has been seized in large portions. According to Interior Cabinet Secretary Fred Matiang'i, investigators will not rest until all contraband goods and people involved are flushed out. The discourse went to the National Assembly today, and from the look of things, the investigators may have fantastically failed to get to the core of the problem. What's more, just like corruption, contrabands are also fighting back, as parliamentarians are split between going for sugar importers or sugar distributors. Even worse, CS Matiang'i told the nation last week that the sugar impounded in Nairobi was laced with mercury and lead. It is a vicious cycle, but the buck stops with the government agencies mandated to regulate the quality of imports. Matiang'i opens the big story tonight.
Whether you work at the Kenya Revenue Authority or the anti-counterfeit agency at the Kenya Bureau of Standards, let's be honest with one another. That time has now come for us to have a come to Jesus with everyone. Let's face each other and do what must be done. This business cannot go on in our country forever. If you know you are making money through these kind of things, you know you are being bribed to do these kind of things, that time has now come for each of us to do some soul searching. And if you cannot do the work that you have been asked to do, just leave. Because as the president says all the time, there are plenty of people in this country who can do the work that needs to be done. Because the fact that somebody is running a thriving industry doing this is evidence that there's someone somewhere who's not doing their work.
I think the main question there is, how did we get here as a country? On the show tonight, I shall be speaking to Navakholo Member of Parliament Emmanuel Wangwe, who is also the Deputy Chair of the National Assembly Committee on Agriculture and Livestock. I shall also be speaking to Francis Wangara, the Secretary General of Kenya Sugarcane Planters and Allied Workers Union, who is in our City Centre studio. But before I speak with them, let me now bring on our lead reporter, Sophia Onuna, who has some great insights on this contraband conundrum. Now, Sophia, good evening. I can see you there from our City Centre studio. Can you perhaps tell us, the answers to this question so many Kenyans have been asking? How could this sugar in question find its way into the country, bearing in mind that there are state agencies like the KRA, for example, the Kenya Police, as much as people are saying they're corrupt, and then there's the anti-counterfeit agencies, all these agencies manning our borders?
Indeed. Good evening, Yusuf. That is a question most Kenyans are contending with tonight, as this revelation after another of counterfeit sugar being netted in different parts of the country, from Nairobi, in Eastleigh. We heard of those bugs that were netted there, in Kiambu, in Eldoret, Kitale, and numerous other places, including Nyandarua. Yusuf, there have been cases of this poisonous sugar being found by the authorities. And what this points to is collusion, that individuals in power, in the public service, like you mentioned KEBS, that's the Kenya Bureau of Statistics, the Anti-Counterfeit Agency. You also have the Kenya Revenue Authority, as well as police, alongside these unscrupulous traders, are in cahoots. They're working together to allow for these products to come into the market to the detriment of ordinary, unsuspecting mwananchi. Now, we heard from that sugar that was netted in Eastleigh, when it was taken to the government chemist, finding the traces of copper as well as lead, and at very worrying and dangerous levels, is what the government chemist says. And looking at what the implication and repercussions of this elements being found in such a product, it's adverse to the human body, in as far as the nervous system. It could affect that, kidney failure, can cause cancer. So huge concerns about this substances being found in sugar. And that we got to this particular point, we've seen the CS Interior Matiang'i himself castigating these gatekeepers, KEBS, KRA, anti-counterfeit agencies, saying if they're not willing and ready to do their job, then they should leave, because it's inexplicable that this is happening. And their power, or their work rather, is to gatekeep, is to ensure ensure these kind of products don't find their way in the market. And what is worrying in that in one incident, some 30 shoppers, officials working in a supermarket were found repackaging their sugar that had come from bags that had been clearly marked as not fit for use, only for industrial work and use, but were being repackaged through some of the locally known brands, and then that makes it easier to penetrate through the market. And so that is very worrying, that unsuspecting ordinary mwananchi going into a supermarket to buy sugar, and it looks like it's normal in what they're used to buying before, but it's this counterfeit product that has been put in them. So you can see the measures to which these individuals and whoever they're working with are going, just to make sure they blend in and make it as, untellable in as far as picking out what's good and what's bad. Now, early on when these revelations came out, KEBS did hold a press conference defending that stamp of authority that it bears and puts on products that they have been able to approve for use or for consumers to partake or use in any way, kind of fashion. However, what is worrying, even with that assurance saying that whatever commodity out there you may find with their label, with their mark on it is good, we have seen cases in the past where copycats will go as close as possible to this mark of approval, to the KEBS sign, so that to say that, and then there are still these instances of even people repackaging the sugar, does not allow for one to sleep easy at night, seeing the lengths to which these kind of networks are going. So we've seen several crackdowns, and Yusuf, it doesn't just stop at sugar. We've heard of adulterated fuel as well. Concerns been raised about that, and individuals being told to report if they fuel their car, and after that several experiences or events unfolding as far as their engagement and as they drive. So there's that. In terms of illicit even products and tax evasion, we've seen the other story that developed, that broke earlier today, of those tires that were found with others stashed within. So we've been talking about corruption, Yusuf, day after day, different scandals, and this is yet another version. This is a black market where at the end of the day it's costing, and we've heard this from KEPSA, the country every year 100 billion shillings, because this black market is thriving, taking away from manufacturing. And remember, this is one of the big four agenda for the president, and so the business community, KEPSA, have been raising this issue to the president time and again, that contraband, counterfeit goods, fake stuff needs to be dealt with, because then it takes away from that which is a legitimate market. So we'll wait to see how all of these events pan out. Some individuals have been arrested in various parts of the country in relation to this. What was interesting is that the woman representative in Kirinyaga County, her brother was to be arrested, or feared for arrest, because investigations were being conducted in one of his warehouses. So getting anticipatory orders to bar the police from arresting him, and this woman rep calling for investigations to the real culprit. So you can see politics also making its way into this, but we wait to see what measures, if at all, and how mwananchi can be able to tell what is the good and not good sugar.
Very disturbing development indeed. We'll wait and see. Many thanks, Sophia Wanuna, for giving us much more detail on these subject of discussion tonight. The main question is still, as a nation, how did we get here? How was this country turned into a contraband dump? Once again, I have two individuals in studio. I'm going to engage the National Assembly Agriculture Vice Chair. That is Emmanuel Wangwe, who also doubles up as Navakholo Member of Parliament, as well as the Secretary General, Kenya Sugarcane Plantation Workers Union. That is Francis Wangara. So we might be wondering how all these imported sugar came into the country. But do you know there was a duty-free sugar importation window provided by the National Treasury Cabinet Secretary, Henry Rotich, through a Gazette notice. Part of that Gazette notice, published in the last quarter of last year, read like this, and I quote, "The drought and famine in parts of Kenya is a national disaster. Duty shall not be payable on the sugar which will have been loaded into a vessel." The Gazette notice continues, number 9801 there, that between 1st of September 2017, that was last year, and 31st December 2017, destined to a port in Kenya and consigned to a local sugar miller. But who are the people behind the alleged contraband sugar? Let's listen into these members of parliament first.
Jana tuliuliza waziri Kiunjuri kwa mkutano. Mimi nilimuuliza, waziri, Tell us who is the owner of the sugar which was destroyed in Mombasa. What he told us is the owners are diamond wholesalers. Tukamuuliza diamond wholesalers sio mtu, tuambie. Waziri hakuweza. Lakini diamond wholesalers si mwingine, is one of us in parliament who brings sugar. Who brings sugar? And that sugar was destroyed in Mombasa.
Western Kenya affair. The sugar industry in this country has got the potential to contribute immensely to the GDP, Madam Speaker, if well nurtured. Many civilized nations take it upon themselves to protect their farmers. This country has failed lamentably in the matter of protecting its farmers. Now, Speaker, if the sugarcane farmers would be protected and supported to engage in meaningful sugar production, this country as a whole would gain. Madam Speaker, I hear people talking about cartels. Interestingly, these cartels are made up of people, some of whom are even in this house. Yes. We must learn to call a spade a spade. There are members of this house who are part of these cartels. I wish I knew them. I would have named them today. I would have named them. And interestingly, Madam Speaker, as I speak, they are looking at me. Some of them.
We want this committee to invite SGS, the only inspection company that allowed a bad sugar to come to our country. SGS must be held responsible. KEBS must be held responsible. KRM must be held responsible, whoever is in charge. And Madam Chair, if you allow me, tomorrow I am going to table in this house over 100 companies that were given duty-free status. I'm going to table it. It's in my office. We must speak. I mean, you know, the problem in our country, I saw somebody talking about diamond wholesalers. Diamond wholesalers don't import sugar. Mega wholesalers don't. Even the guy in Matu and Kitui, Mount Kenya wholesalers, he doesn't import. He buys. He buys. And Madam Chair, if we have agreed to clean Kenya, let us clean Kenya completely. Let us not clean Kenya halfway. Yes, let us not clean Kenya as it suits you.
Those are members of parliament, the last one being the majority leader in the National Assembly, Eden Duale, all of them passionately speaking about this contraband sugar that seems to be the in thing in these few days. We've seen a lot of stories, a lot of the sugar is being nabbed all across the country, not just in Nairobi. Even the member of parliament from that is Dagoretti South, Simbarati, went ahead and said that actually knows the owners of these poisonous sugar, further saying that one of them is a member of parliament. Now, in studio, we're still waiting for the National Assembly Agriculture Committee Vice Chair Emmanuel Wangwe is going to join us shortly. But let me engage the Secretary General of the Kenya Sugar Cane Plantation Workers Union, that is Francis Wangare. Mr. Francis, good evening and welcome to the program. And if you take a look at some of the headlines in this week and last week, you'll see this kind of familiar headlines. 252 bags of illegal sugar nabbed in Eldoret, 185 bags of contraband sugar confiscated in Kisii, 3 prominent businessmen arrested in Nyandarua. There was also another incident that took place in Machakos, and of course the incident that took place in Slee. How did we get here as a country? And perhaps did the authorities just wake up one morning and realize that there are contraband sugar in this country?
Thank you. What I want to state is that it is unfortunate that our country has been a bit asleep on encountering this particular issue. One thing we need to understand is that there are people who are licensed to import sugar, And most of this sugar that is imported, it comes in as raw material. It is not supposed to go to the shelves or to be packeted and be sold to the consumers, because it has to go through a process. And that is why you'll find most of the sugar that has been nabbed, the bags are saying it's not fit for human consumption, it's for factory use. But then the people who import, they are taking shortcut, because you'll find that most of the sugar that comes from Brazil, and I happened to go to Japan one of these days. I went to Japan and found that most of the sugar that is imported in that country is imported as raw material. Then it goes through the full process for it to be sold, to be put on table for human consumption. But the problem we have in this country is that people wanted to take shortcuts. Anybody who finds that there is sugar which is cheap, he can, and once he is given a license to import, he'll bring in any sugar without knowing whether it is fit for human consumption or not. You know, this is what has been causing a problem to the sugar industry that I lead the workers. Because you'll find that when the factories are performing well, you'll find that there is a lot of imported sugar. I'm wondering who imported all this sugar, because at every time of authorizing importation of sugar, there is a specific quota that is supposed to be brought in. As you rightly said, there was a window that was given from September to December. Who allowed this window to exceed December? Those are the questions we should be asking. Then there must be somebody who had a keen interest in whatever business he wanted to do in the sugar industry, so that he can make a lot of money through this window. But unfortunately, it has become clear that this particular culprits, the people who brought in sugar, well, however they are hiding, they have been exposed. And they must tell us who allowed them to go beyond the window that was allowed, and who allowed them to bring this sugar that is unfit for human consumption, and they are now selling to the common mwananchi. We know that there are companies who did not bring in sugar, and their packs could be used by these other people to pretend that they are origins from those factories. But what I want to put clear is that there are some factories which not bring in sugar, and their sugar has no problem. Others which will brought in sugar at the same time, what they have processed is clear, but it's unfortunate that it has landed in wrong hands, and people are misusing their bags and what have you to put in sugar which is unfit for human consumption. It's very unfortunate.
Yes, Mr. Angare, I hope you can hear me. I hope you can hear me now. We're going to address issues to do with the Gazette notice shortly. But before that, can you perhaps tell us, do you feel like these barons or these importers are being protected? Because what we're seeing at the moment is that retailers and small businessmen are the ones who are being arrested left, right, and center.
Those small businessmen are to be arrested so that they can tell us the source. Where did they get this sugar from? They know where they got the sugar from. So that they want to help us where they found the sugar. Who sold this sugar to them? Even if they are being told they bought sugar, where did they buy it from? Those are the people to lead us to the source of supply of this useless sugar.
And I think the best person to tell us how this country got here is the National Assembly Agriculture Committee Vice Chair, that is Honorable Emmanuel Wangwe, who also doubles up as the Navakholo Member of Parliament. I understand is with us in studio now. Now, Honorable Wangwe, good evening, welcome to the program. And there's this question that I had earlier about these, sugars that are being nabbed, not just in Nairobi, but in Eldoret, Kisii, Machakos, Nyandarua. I mean, the examples are endless. So the question is, what influenced this crackdown in Kenya?
Thank you very much. There is a lot that influenced the situation we are seeing today. Mm-hmm. And when you look at from the word go, sugar has been a hot issue as and when we mention it. And what happened is the other day the president had a meeting in the State House for Private Sector Alliance. They informed the head of state that there is a lot of contraband goods which are in the market. As a result, the KEPSA people requested the head of state to now crack down anybody, not necessarily a particular product, any Kenyan who is bringing in or any businessman who is bringing in contraband goods. So in the course of the search, we now landed this scenario where we are saying sugar imported is not only contraband, but it's also poisonous to the Kenyan people.
Now, we've seen retailers, some small businessmen who are arrested. Apparently, some of them have been released on bail. But we've not yet seen a single importer, let alone them being arrested, but we've not even heard their actual names. Do you feel like they're being protected somehow?
Thank you. That is what we've just been discussing in the National Assembly this afternoon, that it appears like some cartels are being protected. And us as legislators and the representative of the people, we say we are not going to allow any cartel, anybody who is going to bring in contraband food or sugar to be protected. We also did mention companies. The majority leader named the companies on the floor. We have them. And on my side as a vice chair for the Departmental Committee on Agriculture, we have been put together with the Committee on Trade to now marshal up the investigation and find out what really transpired. So I don't want to say anybody who is going to be protected shall be again protected by our National Assembly. We will move forward. I am a farmer myself. I represent farmers in the National Assembly as a voter. Those who voted for me are farmers. I'm not going to allow that they send me to National Assembly to protect cartels who want to do two things. One, they are killing our industries. Supposing the cartel is not the one who is doing this kind of business, it means you want to bring up the whole industry, which is the bedrock, which is the fish, which is everything of Western Kenya. Western Kenya has only one product we are doing in, that is sugarcane. We are simply sugarcane producers. So if you kill our industry today, you kill the lives of all those Kenyans who come from Western region. We will not allow that. Number two, we will not allow to protect anybody who has brought in poisonous food. We look at our Cabinet Secretary for Interior did say this is food containing mercury. That is alarming. That is something that we cannot allow to be found available. We want to give him the free hand to investigate on his side, carry out the investigation through the DCI, but we will not allow anybody to be left unturned. We don't want to say there is a big fish. We want to see anyone who is involved in this thing to be taken to court.
Actually, everybody is looking forward to that moment in time. But now let me get Francis Wangara, who is at the City Center studio. Now, Francis, can you perhaps tell us, as a stakeholder in the sugar industry, with all these discoveries, with all these contraband sugar we are seeing, some of them poisonous, laced with mercury, I mean copper, we're going to talk about that shortly. Is it safe to say that your sector is dirty?
My sector could not be conclusively to be said to be dirty, but what I know is that the sugar that was found to be laced with the copper and mercury, we must be able to trace the source of supply. Because that particular person whose sugar was found in his shop or in his godown must give the details of the origin of supply, so that this does not tarnish the entire sector to say it is dirty or this product is not fit for human consumption. Because what we know is that whoever brought in this sugar must be questioned, must be asked, and the authorities that are required to ascertain standards of goods that are brought to this country must be also be asked and questioned. Why are they doing this? Because if it continues, it is a big threat to my industry. It is a big threat because people will believe that any sugar that is packaged in this company package, it is not fit for human consumption, and yet the source is almost clear in the minds of the people who are investigating. Let them not cover up this issue, because I know it is clear in the minds of everybody that this particular sugar was arrested in this particular somebody's so-and-so's shop, or go down or in a supermarket, and he must tell us who supplied that sugar to him. And that is the person to be asked and be questioned, so that it does not just become an issue that the whole industry has problems. It is not so. Because for how long have we been consuming our local sugar without any problem? So it cannot be that now this particular sugar that came from out has made the whole industry to be that. No, it's not right.
Even as we are trying to figure out, of course, the identity or the faces of these individuals who are behind, this contraband sugar, Honorable Wangwe, I would like to get this from you. The fact that we have KRA officials, we have police officers, we have anti-counterfeit agencies, all of them manning our borders. How could possibly this sugar get into this country? And perhaps should we expect heads rolling in the next few days or weeks to come?
Thank you very much. Those are the agencies that need to defend any product that comes in the country. KRA, the way you've mentioned, it has a health or a port health officer stationed in every port of entry. It has to scrutinize. In addition to KRA, there is Kenya Bureau of Standards, there is Kenya Plant Health Inspectorate, KEFIS. There are all these kind of, SGS is also at the point of entry. We have said we'll be questioning. One, we will start from the origin of entry. Who gave the license to import? Under what authority was this sugar imported? We are talking of the sugar that has been tabled on the floor today, that we brought one person or one importer brought 184,000 metric tons into the country. Out of that 184,000 metric tons, look at the scenario. When we simulate the numbers, it's very clear. Industrial sugar consumption in Kenya is about 70,000 metric tons yearly. So what does it mean that this person was bringing in sugar to do? So we want to say we will begin from whoever is supposed to approve the sugar. We'll go to AFA. That's the originating entity. We'll now go to the import itself. Mm-hmm. How did this product get itself into the country? We will go to the Kenya Ports Authority. When they were getting this product into the country, and we have the labels are indicating not for sale. What does that mean? And how come it is finding itself onto the shelf being sold? So we'll be able to investigate. And I want to agree with my brother Wangari and say we don't want to condemn the industry en masse. Mm-hmm. We will love to treat this case in isolation. This is a case of a bad business person, a bad business entity who just wants to have bad manners in the business and wants to hold the whole industry at stake. We will not allow one person or two to simply say the sugar industry is rotten. This is our bedrock. We've been having the sugar sector all along, and we don't want to say it is coming to an end just because one person or two or three are making it look bad.
Honorable Wangwe, before we take a break, up until now, it's good to mention, I think you have to come clear on this. We still don't have a single name of a single importer of this contraband sugar, despite having their company names, right?
At the moment, while it was still on the floor, it was not named as a particular person, mm-hmm. but the various stalls were tabled. Today, you can get it from what transpired on the floor. Mm-hmm. Various companies.
Do you have the name of the owners of these stalls in question?
The entities were mentioned. I don't remember them off. It is just about a few minutes ago, but I can avail them. They were mentioned on the floor. Your parliamentary correspondents can give them out. Okay,
let's take a very short break. We're going to come back, of course, with much more, including that gazette that was issued back in the year 2017 by none other than the Treasury Cabinet Secretary. We're going to ask questions with regards to perhaps a rough idea of the amount of sugar imported then, as well as there's a very interesting soundbite by the Interior Cabinet Secretary, Fred Matiang'i. We're going to tell you that and much more shortly. Stay with us. We'll be right back.